The biggest issue I had in my life when I was younger was this need to conform, but trust in your talent, identify within your strangeness.
Welcome to Mavericks with Ari Melber, a special series where we talk to artists to go deeper beyond the daily news. And our special guest tonight is Grace Moretz. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Most kids are told to wait on their dreams,
Right.
or work hard and then later you'll get to pursue them.
Right.
What was different about you or maybe your family for that?
I would honestly say it was Trevor. My brother was one that championed me. He kind of related me going into acting at a young age to that of a kid practicing gymnastics from 5 or 6 years old. He was like, if she has a natural inclination to jump into it, why stop that just out of fear of what the industry could be?
When you were acting, though, as a little kid, is that the same acting you do now? Or was that basically less complicated and more like playing around and then you develop the skills over time?
When I was younger, it was more about finding ways in reality to connect to very dark or very light moments in scripts. So connecting, playing in a horror movie and playing fear. How do you connect that to a 6-year-old, and how do you show them how to do that? And so we would just try and push that and push ideas of what that felt like. And as I grew up, obviously you go through more things in your life and you're psychoanalyzing these people is what you're doing as an actor. You psychoanalyze where they are in their life and what got them to this point. But our job as actors, hopefully, if you're doing it right, I think, is to create a backstory and create a story from childhood. Why is this person's emotional reaction in this relationship that you're depicting? Why do they react this way? Why is that the trigger for them? And where did that come from? And how is that processing in their life now?
There's also the themes across some of the work you've chosen where society tells people, be a certain way,
Right.
or be normal.
Right.
And you're picking projects that says,
Yeah.
maybe it's more interesting or more real to admit that we're all really abnormal in our own way.
The biggest issue I had in my life when I was younger was this need to conform, to go like, well, I'm not that great, or I'm not this awesome, and we're all kind of the same, we're all kind of generally adequate, and to kind of dull your shine in a lot of ways. And I as a younger person, really fed into wanting to kind of dull my shine to make everything feel a bit more acceptable.
And you're saying you felt that even when you were having success growing up?
100%. When I was 11 years old, 12 years old, I had constantly found this sense of having to apologize for having a career at a young age, having to apologize first and foremost, like meeting someone and immediately being like overtly nice or overcompensating for potentially someone being, taken aback by the career I have had. And I've over the years come into this new form of myself, which is, really came from taking that 1.5-year break of sitting back and accepting the fact that I have worked for 15 years, that I've had a beautiful career of over almost 64 plus movies. And to be able to sit back on that and respect myself and respect my career and respect that this was a talent that I was born with.
You're talking about being in a position where you could semi-retire before you were legal drinking age. Which means you're doing something right in your career.
Yeah.
Because people want to work with you.
Right.
When you made the decision to take a step back from working as frequently,
Yeah.
were you scared that if and when you came back there'd be fewer opportunities?
100%. I mean, that was something that was a gamble. And everyone was against it except for my brother Trevor. My agents, just the industry, everyone said I think it's just not a great choice to pull out of the movies that I was currently attached to and to sit back. I think we need to continue on this path.
And what was the scariest warning you got from them, whether it turned out to be right or not?
That people would forget, that someone else could come up and surpass you completely, and this constant fear that you need to be watching your back, and that goes back to the sense that you're not sitting back and understanding your own talent. and that the talent is within you.
Talking about fear, you're getting deep. FDR famously said there's nothing to fear but fear itself.
Yeah.
And your vision here of why people go to these movies seems to be that if we're so afraid of even being afraid, that tapping into that for a second in fantasy maybe makes us feel better about when it's going to really come.
And that's why on the flip side, as a director, I think for me as a director, the key to finding someone's fear and using that to really terrify them is showing nothing. The scariest thing you can do about the demon in the movie, the scary person, is the door that you can't see behind, the dark room that you can't see the corner of. Our imagination, you can play on that as a director and pray into people's biggest fears, which is the unknown. And that is the ultimate fear of humanity, which is the unknown. I mean, it's the fear that, allows people to fear death itself.
So how does that work in Carrie? And enjoying maybe making other people be afraid.
I mean, Carrie was a lot of fun also because I was like flying through the air at certain times in a prom dress covered in blood. Carrie was actually one of my hardest roles. It was a story about bullying. It was a story about loneliness. It was a story about confinement. It was a story about a mother teaching her daughter nothing about herself. And the unknown of her own body and what she was growing into, which is her womanhood. The turning point was her getting her period and becoming a woman and coming into that cycle of her life. And so the basis of that story was one of the hardest for me to depict as a person because it was also what I was going through at that point in time in my life and my age. But at the end of it, when she comes home and she's washing the pig's blood off her body and the carnage of everything she had been around, she has this moment of realization that all of this came through not knowing who she was ultimately. And this darkness, this telekinesis took her over and preyed on her unknown and turned it into fear. And in that moment when the blood drops all over her, the anger that comes is from the fear. So it all dips back into that.
So you describe Carrie as rooted in social bullying, which is something almost anyone who's been to school can relate to. You take this break, you come back and do a film that's about societal bullying and how adults can try to make kids be something they maybe aren't.
I've just never thought of homosexuality like this.
There's no such thing as homosexuality. There's only the same struggle with sin we all face. Would you let drug addicts throw parades for themselves?
The entire basis of conversion therapy is it's all fear-mongering. Do you want to ultimately go to hell? Do you ultimately want to be damned for the rest of your life for the decisions you make as a child? And this story and what it does, it doesn't make fun of the other side. It speaks that they're acting out of fear too. Fear of these kids truly being born without choosing to be gay. They're being born gay. This isn't a decision they're making. This is how they are. And that is something that they don't want to grasp because it's not what they've been taught. And that means that not everything in your life is a choice, that some of us are just born a certain way.
Some people look at you in your work and your career as a maverick. What does being a maverick mean to you?
Fighting and speaking up for those that aren't being heard. And doing that even in my art form, telling stories and telling projects that most people say would never make money or no one needs to see, and then proving them wrong. And never forgetting that I'm not just making movies for everyone else, but I'm also making movies for myself, and that do what you want to be seen, do what you want to see in the movies and in theaters.
If someone wants to be like you, or grow up to be like you, they should
never take no for an answer. A lot of people, everyone, besides my closest few, told me that it is unachievable, that this is unachievable. But trust in your talent, trust in yourself, because when you go into that room, if you go into that audition, that meeting, the power's in your hands. And you tell people what you're doing. You prove yourself by trusting yourself. Stand and identify within your insecurities, identify within your strangeness, and wear that as a badge of honor, because that's what makes you unique and identifies you.
Chloe, thanks for joining me on our Mavericks series.
Thank